Hey everybody, back at it again. I know my face looks a little red. It's not because of sunburn, it's because I've been drinking. Why was I drinking? Well, today, as you can see from the thumbnail and title, I'm going to be doing a rank and brief review for all 7 live action Resident Evil movies. I had to be drinking to just properly take all of these in. Um, I did not watch these recently. I watched them a few months ago. Recent enough. Um, but my feelings on them have not changed from recapping, so here we are. So we'll be going from 7th to 1st of what I think is the worst to best in the series. Um, and boy, are there some bad ones in here. Well, let's go ahead and get started with number 7, the worst of the worst, and arguably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And that is Resident Evil 7, The Final Chapter. This is just incompetent filmmaking at its absolute worst for a plethora of reasons. I've seen plenty of jokes being made about the editing done in this movie because somebody was like, was the editor being paid like 5 cents per cut during the fight scenes? Which it very much feels like it. When you're watching this movie, the fight scenes are unintelligible. You have no idea what's going on because they're just so bah, 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 really quick, rapid. Um, and it's just, as I said, unintelligible. The lighting is poor. This doesn't even get the excuse of being late 2000s, early 2010, where they were trying to go for nat lighting on pretty much every bit of projects they were working on. This is, let's see, 2017. There's no excuse for the lighting to be as poor as it is. Then there's the writing to talk about. The writing is so bad for this movie because it skips over the entirety of what was planned out at the end of Retribution. Like it skips over all that entirely, the entire fight for the White House, and where we start off, just like, oh yeah, this and this and this and that happened. Just like, well, that would have been, nice to see or something. That would have been pretty nice to see. I'm gonna go into spoilers because I don't think you could. I don't think you should watch this movie. It's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, if I were to give this a star rating out of 5 on Letterboxd, I would give it half of 1 star because it's that bad. So what we have with this movie is it's just like, oh, here's the entire twist. Here's what the culmination of the series has been leading up to. So here's the original Red Red Queen um, model. Like this is who she was modeled after. And Alice, you're a clone of her. It's like, no, we've already seen who Red Queen was modeled after in Apocalypse. It completely disregards any of its sequels and fully retcons like earlier installments. Like, I'm just gonna put it out here, none of these movies keep up with like series continuity, so don't expect that. With this order, it's less of like how good the movie is, because I feel like most, if not all, of these movies are bad. It's going from like, least enjoyable to the most enjoyable, slash I put it on again. This one is refuse, bottom of the pile. Next. I hate that movie. It took me multiple sittings to get through it. It's the only movie on this list that took me multiple sittings to get through it because it's just that bad. Anyways, so number 6 is one that I went back and forth with on which movie I disliked more because again, this isn't really a listing of like favorites, although I no, that's not true. I have 3. The top 3 I will say are favorites as far as this series goes because they're either fun or they're just so bad, that they're fun. And then you have my number one, which I thought was actually trying its best to being a good movie. Didn't fully work, but we'll get there. Um, Number six, Resident Evil Afterlife. I will give this movie one thing. At least it followed through on the whole Milla army premise that it was leading up with at the end of Extinction. Um, that being said, the rest of this movie is garbage as soon as you get done with that first opening bit because it's slow after we get done with all of this, and her telekinetic powers, they're taken away. Why'd she have them in the first place is my question. But again, series continuity, it doesn't make any sense, so we're just not going to pretend like it does. Um, there's one other cool scene, and it's when the Axeman arrives into the jail compound that they're in. I thought that sequence was cool, very well done. The rest of this movie was not good, by any means. Then you get to the final confrontation with Wesker at the end, and it's just like, because we have the Redfield twins fighting against Wesker, and they're easily beaten in this movie, and then Alice comes along and she's like, I'm gonna get you now. And Wesker's just like, okay, well, I'm gonna mouth thing. And I mean, I'm not fully versed in Resident Evil, like the series. I plan on playing through it someday, but I'm not versed in it. Um, so mouth thing comes out, and that's like all he tries to attack her with, and it's just like, so you're going like full on martial arts just 5 minutes ago, but now you can't be bothered. No, no, no. It's because our protagonist has to have a win. She has to win somehow. And it is just really stupid. The ending of this movie is so stupid. Granted, Resident Evil franchise, it's not really that good. But yeah, this I would say has some entertaining parts, but as a whole, I will probably only be revisiting this with like clips on YouTube. Maybe if I'm doing another watch through, I'll watch it. Otherwise, like I was fighting for my life with this one. I did not enjoy it. All right, moving on to number. What are we on now? 5. I didn't forget. I promise. Number 5. I went back and forth on this one because what's not number 5, well, obviously is going to be number 4, but again, it's a question of which is worse. And I have decided on number 5 being Resident Evil Extinction. And I have a problem with this one because this one, despite it being interesting, because it's like Resident Evil mixed with Mad Max a little bit, like while it's interesting in that regard, the question of like her superpower abilities is like weird to me. Like I don't fully understand how she has that ability. None of these movies make it clear, in my opinion. And then we have some really stupid choices made throughout, where we have this one character that tries to hide a bite. That's like the entire character arc, hiding a bite. I feel like most of the characters are just there. None of them are exactly recognizable or really fully that enjoyable. Yeah, I fully don't remember this movie. Like, legitimately, I don't remember this movie. If Afterlife was not as dumb as it was, this would probably be lower. But this is just... Nah, this one ain't it. It's not really that fun. It's kind of slow. It definitely takes its time getting there, and I feel like it takes way too much time getting there. So by the time we get to the end, I just don't really care. The entire Milla army idea is at least cool, but that's like the biggest pro I can give it. It's inoffensive, it's a decent follow-up to Apocalypse, but by no means is it a good entry in this series. So that's number 5. What's number 4, you might ask? Well, this is where my opinion gets controversial. If you've been keeping track and you know this series, at least somewhat, you'd know that there was not one that I named earlier. We'll get there. So, number 4, Resident Evil. Yeah, so this movie I thought had some really good ideas in it. Uh, I feel like it did its best trying to be a Resident Evil movie, but at the same time, I also feel like it didn't really go all the way. It's not a great adaptation of the game. Um, like it's very not the game at all. um, so when I watched it, I was kind of like, wow, I don't know a lot about this series, but from what I do know, this is not right. Um, I mean, it's fun, but none of the special effects hold up. Well, no, I'm not gonna say none, but a lot of them don't. I should give it the benefit of the doubt, though, seeing as how it came out in 2002. But as a whole, this one's not exactly the most fun in the series. No. No, I'm gonna take that back. I think this is more fun than Extinction, Afterlife, and the final chapter, but it is ultimately very forgettable. Um, I felt like most of the acting wasn't really that strong, and when they had like supposedly emotional plot beats near the end of the movie, I was like, I do not care in the slightest. So ultimately, we get to the end of the movie, and it's like, well, that was indeed a flick. So my mama always said, if you don't have much nice to say, don't say anything at all. I already said a lot about what I don't like about this one. The laser grid hallway is dope. I like that. However, I don't like that it shows up many times in the series. Like they just will not let it die. So that was kind of grating on my nerves. In those later entries, it's fan service of yourself, and it's like I don't know what's wrong with Paul W.S. Anderson. I genuinely don't, because it's like he made Event Horizon, which I thought was a pretty nice flick. I would love to have seen the director's cut of it. However, we'll probably never be able to see it. But then he went on to make these, and it's like these are the most no. All right, let's get on to number 3. This is the controversial take because number 3 is going to be Resident Evil Retribution. Yeah, I went into this one thinking that it was going to be horrible because everybody was telling me, oh, this is horrible. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't say it's good. None of these movies are really good. However, I felt this one was fun. And ultimately, that's what I cared about. I wanted it to be fun. Um, and I liked the different environments that we went into. I liked uh, the idea of our primary character teaming up with someone that is not exactly the most trustworthy. Um, a lot of people aren't really happy with the portrayal of game characters in this franchise. Fair. None of them are really that good. Um, Pretty much just caricatures of how they are in the games. Again, from what little I do know. So with this one, it's more of I did have fun, and it was nice to see Michelle Rodriguez return playing Rain, as well as oh god, I am blanking on his name. Yeah, it is not coming to mind. Guy who plays Carlos. It was nice to see them come back. I was glad that Rain had a bit more importance in this movie, but I would put this one on again just to have a stupid movie to put on. Like, it doesn't really make that much sense, but at the same time, it's like, it's giving me the fun that I asked for, so I'll let it slide, I guess. Um, the acting was considerably better in this one as compared to Afterlife, and I feel like a big portion of what makes a lot of the acting in this series poor is because of the 3D gimmick that they were going for. But that's number three. Number two, The Last. PWSA, and it's not even PWSA that made this one. LOL. Haha. This is Alexander Witt. Resident Evil Apocalypse. This one is the most fun. Uh, it's also a bit of a mess, but all of them are. Um, but I have to say that this is probably the most enjoyable of PWSA's franchise, the Milla movies, as some people call them. Um, I agree. I feel like it adds on to the first movie pretty well. It's very fast paced, it's very enjoyable. Plus, who they got to play Jill Valentine looks like eerily similar to how she looks in the game. So it's like, congratulations, honestly. Um, but at the same time, it's just like the rest of the movie is still, action horror. So it's like leaning closer to the action than it is to the horror. And uh like again, it's enjoyable, but it's also not like sterling cinema. I don't know why I keep saying that. None of these movies are. I keep saying it. All right, last time. That's the last time I'm gonna say it. The last time I'm gonna say it. All right, I promise. So, Resident Evil Apocalypse. It's fun. It's a shoot 'em up movie. It's borderline Bollywood, but it is really fun. It's a good time. I liked it. I'll put it on again just if I want to, have fun. So it leads me to number one. And this is the only movie from this franchise, the live action Resident Evil movies, that I felt was like actually trying to be, um, a good movie. And that would be, I feel like this might also be a controversial take. I don't know. I know this one's very divisive, but Resident Evil Return, what? Welcome to Raccoon City. Um, I understand and agree with casting choices being questionable in this movie with Leon and Jill. Um, I do agree that those are some questionable casting decisions, but at the same time, we also got like perfect casting for Claire and Chris Redfield, like Robbie Amell and Kaya Scodelario, like perfect casting for those characters. The first half of this movie, I feel, is really good with tension, really good with lighting. The directing is phenomenal because it's ramping up that tension, that suspense. It's very Carpenter-esque with its approach of dynamic lighting, and I felt like the storyline was working. And then we get to the second half of the movie. And the second half of the movie kind of forgets about what exactly it's trying to do and is like, oh crap, we gotta wrap up this thing. Um, so by the time we get to the end of the movie, it's yet another mess, but I mean, that's what someone should expect when they try to adapt two games into one movie. I felt like that was a bad idea from the start, but and like they could set up for the second movie in the first movie. Like they could still have Claire showing up in Raccoon City. They can still have Leon at the police station. Like we can set all of this up and then have the rest of the movie be at the Spencer Mansion. Because like with the first Resident Evil movie from Paul W.S. Anderson, it doesn't feel like we're in the Spencer Mansion much at all. We're more like this underground facility. So with this movie, it's like we're not really in the Spencer Mansion all that much. Um, and then, of course, we're also in RPD for the other half of the movie, and I felt like we also didn't spend enough time there. or when we were there, we were kind of meandering. It didn't feel like these were locations and set designs, and more of just a place for us to stand. There's no like ultimate significance for us standing here. It's just so that people who played the game can go like, "Hey, wait, I know that one." Um, the orphanage scenes I felt were well handled. I liked it, especially with the like one for one recreation of the gate. Um, Again, I know things. Um, so yeah, it's like this is like the ultimate fan service movie, but I also feel like it's kind of sort of fan service done right in the first half of the movie, and then it kind of goes for the rest of it. I'm I do hope that they do a sequel to this movie because I would like to see more of these characters in a different environment. I would like to see them flesh out in its own storyline. Um, or if they decide to go the Carlos route with, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, then we can see that. But let let Resident 3 Nemesis be Resident 3 Nemesis. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Please. I'm begging. Please, no more two games in one movie. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's my list. What did you think of these movies? Leave your ranking down in the comments below. And I'm pretty sure nobody really enjoyed these movies. Like, thought they were good movies. But I'm pretty sure there's some enjoyment to be had from them, either sober or not. There's something there that is enjoyable, and for that, I do recommend, at the very least, the top 4 of the list. You can just forget about the others. Although some people do enjoy Afterlife, some people do enjoy Extinction. I question those that like Final Chapter. um, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's not like the best series in the world. Dang it, I did it again. I should probably end the video before I keep doing it more. So next video will probably be going into what I've been saying the past few videos, which is more on the side of, like, I'll be doing this comparison video of the Ring movies, and then also talking about the Black Christmas movies, and then also talking about Twilight, because we're in the midst of a Twilight renaissance. But yeah, that's what I have planned. Hopefully that works out. But otherwise, hope you like the video. Like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any suggestions for anything in the future, I'll be willing to look into them. If they're not anything heinous, because I will not be doing any, like, any of those movies. I will not be looking into movies like Cannibal Holocaust. So when I say suggest something, I'm saying with a caveat of be mature about your suggestions. But yeah, so hope you have a good one.